I know, that's why I didn't chime in. I didn't say a word.
Good evening, everyone. We are going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Let's begin with roll call. Dr. Hooker?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Heidi Hensley, Ms. Claudia Butts, Ms. Linda Davis,
Here.
Dr. Patricia Yeager,
Here.
Mr. Tim Denson,
Here.
Dr. Mombi Anderson,
Here.
Dr. Lakeisha Gant, Ms. Nicole Hull,
Here.
and Mr. Mark Evans.
Here.
All right, looks like we have a quorum and we can move forward with our posted agenda. Just one item, though, that we are going to remove is the first executive session. So item 3, we're going to remove, but we are going to keep the executive session that is at the end of our work session. So with that in mind, with that amendment in mind, record, okay, sorry. We will move on to our next item on the agenda, and that is the President's Board report. I don't have a lot to report, but I did want to propose a couple of things, and we can take it offline and discuss it in more detail before we come to any formal decisions. But there have to date been 2 community listening sessions. Mr. Evans has hosted one in September, and Dr. Gant hosted one in October. And for both sessions, there were 2 to 3 attendees. And given those numbers, what I'm thinking might be a better approach is to have 2 members host a session every other month, rather than 1 member hosting a session every month. And the 2 members can either self-select, or it can be members that are maybe neighbors of their school district, so that, people in that general area are able to attend the meeting for the 2 members. So I wanted to propose that as an idea for 2025 to test out, to see if we can get a little bit more community engagement, get higher attendance, and also maybe relieve the district from the planning of an event every single month. What are y'all's thoughts? Yeah? Good. Okay. Yeah, everybody. Yeah, whoever. Yes.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I meant to visit one of those, but I did not. And so my question is, at these listening sessions, what advance notice? I know we're notifying the parents through our own communication method that the sessions are happening. Mm-hmm. Is there an agenda other than just a listening session? Is there a topic, anything in particular that would maybe pique somebody's interest in coming there? Because I know people are waiting for me to have mine, but they're not necessarily parents. So, yeah, that would be question that I would have, is
Yeah.
how are we structuring them?
Right. Well, I know for mine next week, I do have a very short agenda where I'll present some metrics, some of the things that we'll talk about this evening, so I'll present some of those metrics.
Okay.
And my theme will be centered around a couple of, issues, climate and culture, student safety. So, but that's not something that we have formally decided that every
Okay.
board member is going to do. So maybe, Mr. Evans, if you'd like to kind of jump in and maybe give us a summary of how yours went?
Well, I had an agenda. I talked with Dr. Moore about it, but then Appalachia happened, and that kind of blew everything up. And I spent most of the time talking with the parents that were there and, trying to reassure them that, yes, we had a plan, yes, Chief knows what we're doing, and that, all of the things that we can do to make our schools as safe as we can, we're doing them, and that we're always looking for other things. So, yeah, I would talk with Dr. Moore. She can get you the stuff that you need if you want to put together a presentation. I think, after our meeting with the Career Academy today, that's something that we should talk about in every single one of our things. We should, that should be maybe even the beginning topic, is like, hey, we've got this wonderful program, and I really never want to hear about how it's like a hidden jewel. I don't know. It doesn't need to be hidden. It needs to be out, because we're doing it, and the growth that we have seen.
Right.
So, yeah, that would be my suggestion, is coordinate with Dr. Moore, and if you need talking points and things, they can put that together. And I think, Dr. Moore, you have a slide deck, right, that we can, template that we
Yes,
use?
yes,
Okay.
we can certainly help you with that.
So,
Sounds good.
So the long short is it can be as formal or informal as you want it to be. And I think that that's a good thing. Every one of us kind of have our relationships with our community, and we can kind of use that to decide how we want to structure our meetings. So yes, when January approaches, we can talk about how to structure the two members per meeting, and then which months we'll schedule them for, and then we can move forward with that in 2025. But I will keep my November date for my event, and then the next one can be either late January or early February. Okay?
Thank you.
Wonderful, yes, thank you all. All right, we will start reaching out to you all about our March retreat dates. We probably need to schedule those sooner rather than later. In the past, we've done it in the second week-ish of March. So I think that that's probably what we're going to begin with, is the second weekend around-ish of March, and see what everyone's availability is at that point, and then go from there. Yes, I saw somebody tentatively. Did somebody look like they wanted to say something? Okay, so we'll be reaching out to you all to get the March meeting on all of our calendars. Let's see, the board manual is complete. There were a few members missing on the second day of our retreat, where we did cover, all of the parts of the board manual. If you did not get your hard copy, make sure that you grab a hard copy from Ms. Palmer. There are so many things in there. I mean, it is rich with information. And they did add a couple of things since our retreat that we recommended as board members be added to the board manual. So there's a final version that's available for all of the members. So let's make sure that if you also want that final version, that you get in touch with Ms. Palmer. The executive session for the superintendent evaluation is going to happen at the end of our meeting today. And that's all I've got for President's report. Okay, so now we will move on to item number 5, our business items for discussion for consent agenda. As usual, if you can, I'll go down the list very quickly, but if you have objections and wish to remove something from the consent agenda, please raise your hand high so we can acknowledge that, and then we can have a short discussion about each of the items before we move forward with our agenda. So the first on the list is October 17th work session and board meeting minutes. Okay. Georgia College Advisor contract. Okay, we will pull that. Oh, you have a question or a pull? Okay.
I have questions about this.
Okay,
Do we want to talk about it now or just?
sure. Let's do that.
So, our high schools are famously not getting kids into colleges compared to other districts. And I didn't realize this was the system we had in place before, and it was free, and now we're going to pay for it. Is that correct? Is my understanding correctly what this is? This was a free service that we had at the high schools from UGA, and now we're actually going to be charged for it.
No, it was not a free service. We've always paid to have college advisors. It's a partnership with the Georgia College Advising Corps, which is a part of a national organization that's called the College Advising Corps. Not all schools or school systems qualify to have these individuals in their schools. Just to sort of explain the concept of this, it's almost like a Teach for America-like program where they take in college graduates, they get specialized training, and then they get placed in partner schools for 2 years to provide these college advising services. In the past, the person that ran the Georgia College Advising Corps, and there's someone that's new that's there, has tried to write grants to offset our cost as a district. That was just a choice that the local director made to do. They were unable to get any additional funds to subsidize our cost, so the cost increased. We budgeted for that. We put it in the Office of School Counseling budget for this fiscal year, so we had the right amount budgeted, but we now are at the dollar amount that requires board approval to continue to fund these positions in our schools. We have one at Cedar and we have one at Central.
And do we have any data on effectiveness of these people? Because I had 2 kids go through Cedar who pretty much said that the college advice was not good. And I hear that from a lot of kids, like they're underestimating what the kids can do, you know, just that it's generally not been good.
Sure. So the College Advising Corps, they have several KPIs, but some of the biggest metrics that those individuals work on is ensuring that they meet with every single senior, not just to discuss, but to provide individualized post-secondary planning that's customized to that student's interest and needs. They keep all their data and metrics on how many students they've met with, how often they've met with them. Some students may not meet with that person more than once, but they have other KPIs that they also target as a part of their work. Some of the biggest things that they try to ensure, and we have some data that I did send it to Ms. Palmer and to Dr. Hooker, a folder of data from the Georgia College Advising Corps that they can share with all of you. But essentially, their goal is to ensure our students complete the FAFSA at the highest completion rate possible to secure federal aid. Not going to college, one of the biggest barriers for many students is financial aid. So that's a critical performance metric they target. They also target working with students to ensure they take the ACT and SAT. That also includes both of those individuals at the schools. They're responsible for all of our SAT, ACT, and college application waivers. Any student that is qualified for free and reduced lunch, and I know that with our district that's a little bit different, but essentially ACT College Board, they provide both they provide waivers for students to take the test for free, for no charge. They also provide, students receive up to 4 college application waivers. So those individuals manage all of that, and the students work with them directly to get those. So FAFSA completion, sitting for the ACT and SAT, and then finally ensuring students complete post-secondary applications that align with their chosen pathway. So they actually measure data around completing college applications. We actually, separately as a district, we do work with our college advisors on this, but we take senior exit survey data to try to capture. Our goal is, of course, that every single graduate has a structured post-secondary plan. So our college advisors are very critical in helping to ensure that that happens, working with students one-on-one.
One more follow-up, and then
Yeah,
I promise
sure.
I'll be quiet. So do we have other district staff who are helping with this college advising, or is this the person who does everything, this person on this list?
They work in conjunction with our school counselors. So we absolutely want our school counselors to provide comprehensive school counseling services. But frankly, it's great to have these individuals because they get additional training and workshops around the college admissions process, including even advising students on something as simple as, when is the ideal time to take the SAT? And I don't mean time of year, but aligning with when you've completed a certain amount of math curriculum. So making sure our students have that appropriate guidance around being prepared with the college admissions process and having hands-on support. They help facilitate all of our FAFSA nights with parents. So they provide critical support, but they work as a part of the school counseling department within each high school. So they work closely with the school counselors.
I guess I'm just wondering, for such a really important position for many of our kids, why are we using someone who's right out of college and is being paid $35,000? Like, why are we not like having professional college advisor in our high schools?
I would argue that they're very, very trained and capable of filling those
Yeah, but
positions.
they're only in the position for 2 years. So then someone else comes at 2 years later, and someone else comes 2 years later. We don't have, I guess it's just
I can
a
share with
question.
you, as a former principal who started this program with UGA in 2011, that it was very effective. They go through a very intense summer program. The previous districts that I worked in, when I moved to Henry, they started the same program. It has been very effective, especially for first-year individuals who families are not familiar with the college process. They've been very helpful in getting them into colleges. It has been very helpful even in my interaction in returning here. I've had interactions with both Cedar Show's and Clark Central's college advisor, and the things that they put on have been very effective. Matter of fact, most of those individuals go back to get a counseling degree and to come back to work with the school district or other school districts. It's been very effective that I've seen, and I've personally witnessed that as a principal here. Lawrence Harris was my second one. He did it for 3 years. I had several others who did it as well, and they went into education as well. So it's been an effective program, especially for our families who do not understand the college process, and getting kids to take the SAT, and they were given waivers. They were there supporting them. They were offering SAT and ACT practice on the weekends. That has always been the process. And I forget the the professor at UGA who started this up. She and the others would come to Clark Central, and I think we started off, and then later Cedar Show's received one as well.
Yes, and there's other school districts. APS has a number of college advisors. Many districts would love to have college advisors, but don't qualify because they don't have the right data or demographics to be eligible to receive one of these individuals. So there are schools in Georgia, primarily private schools, that will fund college advisors, but I will tell you there's not, even for school counseling programs, there's not coursework that's dedicated to college advising. as someone with a master's in school counseling, that's just not a part of the school counseling coursework curriculum. Most of that professional development and knowledge base is built through additional professional learning. So these individuals are, again, oftentimes they're given more professional learning in this concentrated way than other counselors even have access to initially when they're graduating with their degree programs, with their master's in school counseling.
Okay, yes, Ms. Hall. Yes, Ms. Hall.
Excuse me. I'll say my experience in going through or meeting with the college advisor last year, that's actually where I got the information I shared in our joint meeting about a different type of entrance exam being an option for my child. And so I found her to be extremely knowledgeable because I didn't know that. So that was just my experience with Ms. Aguilar.
Ms. Davis?
Thank you. So, thank you. There's a lot of information that we've never seen. So is there a possibility that we can see some of the results of the work that was done? And I did hear you say every single senior is being advised on this, and so we have some data now that tells us or informs us about maybe what else, what can we learn from that data?
Sure,
That would
yes.
impact how we are approaching counseling outside of the college piece, because I would imagine in those conversations, other things that are shared that might be helpful and maybe steering a student in a particular way or something, I don't know. But it's exciting to know that you have been collecting this information for how long?
Well, and it's not, let me be clear, this is a partnership, and so we collect certain types of data, on our side of things, but they collect the data, and the data I have to share with you all came directly from the Georgia College Advising Corps with things that they're required to collect.
And so what do we, this is probably a question for you, Dr. Hooker, what do we collect differently that would inform us about the direction that our seniors are taking? Just want to know, because these are questions that I remember we've
Yes.
had conversations about in the past,
we
and that
asked-
information wasn't available.
Sure, we ask students to complete, we call it a senior exit survey. We ask all students to complete that. We ask the counselors to work to get at least 90% completion, but our goal is to try to capture what a student's intended post-secondary pathway is, either military enlistment, employment, and then if they are going to be employed, we ask additional questions about that to verify that it's like a structured employment opportunity, not just going into the workforce just to work any old job, that it's like a structured opportunity, or college enrollment, post-secondary enrollment, either a technical college or a four-year college. And then we ask them to tell us where they're going as well. And then we also have a contract for National Clearinghouse data, and we try to match up and confirm enrollment as well to try to see what percentage of our kids actually matriculate to college.
So I guess to piggyback off of Dr. Yeager's concerns, and I think I heard you mention that you do ask in that survey for student satisfaction in college counseling?
I didn't say that, but we
Oh,
do. We
okay.
do.
Okay, so you
we
do
actually
capture-
say, we asked who helped you in terms of post-secondary planning for life after high school, and we give them a lot of different options that they could select from, and then we just ask them, do you feel like you had, adequate amounts of support, essentially.
Okay.
We do seek that feedback, of course, because it's important to know how our students felt about their experience.
Okay. So I heard Dr. Yeager and Ms. Davis ask if you don't mind sharing some of the results that you've compiled over maybe the past 2 or 3 years. That would be super helpful, I think, for them to have a better understanding.
Sure.
And I will add with Ms. Hull, my son received a wonderful counselor at Clark Central, and he even helped him with his essay, edit his essay.
Right.
So it may be a person-to-person experience issue rather than an issue with the overall sort of structure of the program. But
And I'll
anyway,
say we have students that they meet and they check in with, and of course, nothing is forced. So, if a student says, yep, I'm good, I've got my plans, and I'm, this is what I'm doing, and they've essentially seemed to have met those metrics that they're trying to target, with the Georgia College Advising Program, typically then they won't, they'll allow that student to determine if they want to re-engage and seek some additional support. Any student that wants that support, though, has the ability to receive that, but the goal is that every single senior receives a meeting, and then once they've met with seniors, they also then start to target juniors.
All right, well, maybe once we've had a chance to look at some of the data that you share, we can have another nuanced conversation about what that program looks like. But for now, I think we can move on with this item. Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Let's see, where are we? C. So would you like to keep the Georgia College Advisor contract off the consent agenda? Okay. All right, Ms. Palmer?
No.
Dr. Yeager said yes, so, okay, thank you. All right, next up is field trips. Always a good one to approve. And now we are at D, renew mobile modular rentals at Cedar Shoals. We're good? Okay. E, building automation systems upgrades. We're good? Okay. F, grounds maintenance services. Okay, we're good. Yep. Mr. Denson, do you have questions?
I just wanted to take a moment to thank the school district and for staff for listening to the information that came from the disparity study, and they unbundled this contract as was recommended, and they also were able to negotiate along with a discounted price, but the recipient is willing to subcontract with local minority, women, and/or veteran-owned businesses. So I think that's some really good progress there. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. All right, so we're keeping that item on the agenda. Yes? Okay, thank you. Next up is G, approval of the 25-26 academic calendar and 26-27 academic calendar. If you all remember, we discussed this at our last meeting, tabled it to give the community longer time to review. Ms. Palmer, had we had any additional community feedback, any?
If you scroll down, at the end, I put a section, and Dr. Moore compiled all the comments that were received after the 10-10 meeting. So they're all here. This is what was received after our last meeting.
Oh, okay, thank you for that. So there it is, public input after 10-10-24. Would you all like some time to review that before we decide to keep this on the consent agenda?
Yeah, there's a significant amount of input.
Okay, so what we'll do is just pull it off of the consent agenda, give us some time to digest it, and then we can we'll bring it back, and if you all decide as a group that we need to table it again, then we can make that decision at the board meeting. All right, so that's off of the consent agenda, Ms. Palmer. Thank you. H, Athens-Clarke County Project P7 Acquisition Packet. All right, Ms. Davis, do you have any questions?
I do. I have not, have we had a presentation about the impact of this from our facilities department and how that impacts the West Broad School at that intersection? Because it currently faces Minor Street and it's a fairly short street. What's actually going to happen?
No, we haven't done a presentation, but we've been meeting with Athens-Clarke County and the GDOT folks. It's the roundabout at West Broad and Minor Street and Hancock Street where they all come together. I think, Lisa, if you open up the documents, there's a sketch in there from GDOT on the changes that are being made. As far as impacting us, they're taking about 600 square feet along, a little bit along Minor Street and a little bit, most of it along West Broad, for sidewalk improvements and widening and putting in the roundabout. And then there's a permanent easement that's being granted as well for maintenance of the right-of-way.
How much land is that permanent easement transferring?
It's under 1,000 square feet. It's basically access along West Broad, going up West Broad where they're putting in sidewalks and such.
So I really can't tell a whole lot from these. So has there been like, obviously there must have been some public discussions about this or something, but
Yes.
I just need a little bit more information. And if
Yeah, it's
you'll-
not really impacting the school at all. It's not, you know, it's kind of encroaching on it's in the right-of-way, which is already there. It's just reshaping to allow that roundabout go in. So it's right at the corner of West Broad and Minor Street.
It doesn't touch the hedges,
No,
so it's just that tiny corner.
yeah.
And so will we have access on Minor Street?
Yes, they've reconfigured, I think there's another sketch, Lisa, that shows the parking down Minor Street. I believe it's right, the next one. But it shows where they had already outlined where you can do parking and how that is situated currently. And it's basically the same.
So was that in our packet? Because I missed that.
No, I just got this from Athens Clarke County, and they have like a 30-day approval time, so I kind of put it in, I think it was Tuesday is when we got it. We had put it in the packet. Okay, yeah, so it was in the packet. But I had just received it less than a week ago, and if I wait till December, then I miss their 30-day approval time period.
I haven't been back in this packet since when it first came out, so, all right, so I don't remember seeing that, so I'll go back and look at that. But I guess it concerns me that, my question is not will we have parking on Minor Street, will we have access to Minor Street from West Broad?
Yes, and the
Okay.
roundabout, yes, it still maintains our
So it's
access.
still the and then we
Yep.
still have our access, okay.
Right.
I have received feedback from the community about that, and that was, okay, thank you, that helps. And so those drawings that you're showing me now are part of this package?
Yes, ma'am.
I can find it, thank you.
They're
Okay.
page 7 and 8 and 9.
I just didn't see it when I last looked at this packet, that's all. I'll go back and look later, again.
Okay, page 7 through 10. Okay, well, Ms. Davis, would you like to keep that off of the consent agenda so you have time to
Absolutely.
review? Okay. All right, so we are pulling item H as well. All right, and our next agenda item is 6, personnel report and job description. Let's start with the personnel report. Any questions? Well, I guess you can't ask any questions. Job description? Any questions about the job description? No? Okay. All right, so we will move those to the board meeting. And now we are at item 7, to go into executive session.
Oh, good.
Somebody's got to,
I move that we go into executive session to discuss personnel and all the long statement that Dr. Gant used to read for us to go into executive session.
okay. I need a second.
Also, second.
Second.
All right. Do I need to read it before we vote or after we vote? The little blurb.
You can just say to go into executive session for personnel issues.
Okay, all right. All right, so let's go ahead and vote. All in favor of going to executive session?
Aye.
Okay. We are going into executive session now to discuss personnel.
Hey, Ben, how you doing? Okay, you guys are cross country? Yes. All right, what I'm gonna try to do this time.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this evening. We will get started with our November 14th board meeting. Going ahead and calling the meeting to order, and now we will move to item number 2 on our agenda. Dr. Hooker, would you like to do roll call?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Heidi Hensley, Ms. Claudia Butts,
Here.
Ms. Linda Davis,
Here.
Dr. Patricia Yeager,
Here.
Mr. Tim Denson,
Here.
Dr. Mombi Anderson,
Here.
Dr. Lakeisha Gant, Ms. Nicole Hull, and Mr. Mark Evans.
Here,
Thank you, Dr. Hooker, and it looks like we've got a quorum, so we can move forward with the next items on our agenda. We'll start with item number 3, a moment of silent meditation, and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So, moment of silent meditation. And now we're ready for the Pledge of Allegiance. And the flag is up here to your left. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, now let's move on to the reason why most of us are here this evening. Number 4, recognitions and awards. Dr. Moore?
Thank you, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Hooker. Good evening, board members. We do have a few students and staff recognitions tonight, so we'll start with a very exciting accomplishment by some of our high school student athletes. We are pleased to be joined tonight by members of the Clark Central High School varsity boys cross country team. Please join me now in welcoming the team and their coaches to our stage. Come on up. This group of student athletes finished in second place overall last weekend in the GHSA Class 5A State Championship meet at Carrollton High School. This is the third straight season the Gladiators have finished in the top 3. They were also state runners-up in 2022 and finished in third place last season. The team also won its 5th consecutive region title this fall. The Gladiators had 2 top 10 individual finishers, as juniors James Daniel placed 4th overall, and junior Waylon Vaughn finished 6th out of 172 runners in the championship meet. Senior Ryan Marshall, junior Noah Kilpatrick, freshman Henry Morgan, senior Gavin Benitez-Gay, and senior Carl Ritzler also competed in the state meet. Others in the top 12 group of runners for Clark Central include Luke Skillickman, Torrent, that's not right, is it? I thought I had it easy when I was saying Henry, and then I got too confident. Torrin Trotter, Charlie Black, Riker Comstock, and Carlos Flores. The Gladiators' head coach is Erica Casicchio. No, it's not right either, I'm sorry. She is assisted by head trainer Lee Patterson, assistant coach Josh Williams, and parent volunteer Rhea Marino Kilpatrick. Please join me again in congratulating these students, and at this time I'd like the board members to come up, stand with the students, and let's have some photos taken. Congratulations. All right. Just, yeah, on the sides is fine. We can get you all in, I think. Congratulations. Good job. Now you know what to do. Scooch together. Scooch, scooch. Oh, there we go. There we go. Future leaders. Future leaders. Good job. Now, let's see your power pose. Right? Yeah. Oh, there you go. Excellent. Excellent. All right, look this way. Excellent. Congratulations. I'm going to ask the board members to stay up there, and students and coaches, you may be seated, and you are free to leave if you'd like. Next, we'd like to recognize Mr. Ben Smalley. I got that right. Come on up, Ben. CCSD's Social Studies Curriculum Coordinator, who last month was named the Outstanding Social Studies Supervisor Leader of the Year by the Georgia, yes. By the Georgia Council for Social Studies at the annual state conference. Mr. Smalley is in his 5th year as our Social Studies Coordinator and has consistently done extraordinary work in supporting our school administrators and teachers and helping to promote relevant and engaging educational opportunities for all of our students. Among these, he has led the way in partnership with the historic Morton Theater to take all of our 8th grade students on an annual field trip to the theater downtown each of the last 3 years for a live performance. And editorializing here, that is always a highlight for the students. Most recently, this past spring, students took in a performance of Brown versus the Board of Education over 60 years later. He started the National History Day competition in CCSD 3 years ago, and that program has flourished with our middle school students winning numerous regional and state awards for their research projects. This past summer, CCSD had its first team reach the national competition. He has won numerous grants for the district to bring breakout boxes, VR equipment, and laminated maps into classrooms to increase student engagement and promote inquiry-based instruction. He has partnered with the Athens Historical Society to provide feedback on films about local history that could be used in the classroom. And he has led the Northeast Georgia RISA Cheerleaders and Champions program, which was designed to create infrastructure needed to effectively communicate and support social studies teachers in Georgia. Mr. Smalley says he considers this a group award and wanted to give a shout out to all of the social studies educators throughout the district who have played a major role in our continued goal of improving social studies education for all CCSD students. If the board will come up to have their picture taken with Mr. Smalley. And again, we would, there we go. A little bit closer, there we go. Again, thank you, Mr. Smalley, and congratulations on your well-deserved honor. And finally tonight, we'd like to recognize our Employee of the Month for November. Our Employee of the Month this month is Denise Maddox, and I'll ask her to come forward. 8th grade English teacher at Bernie Harris Lyons Middle School. Now, I told you this might be a little uncomfortable, but it'll be worth it. Ms. Maddox is in her 3rd year with CCSD and at BHL and is a veteran teacher of 23 years with prior experience in Newton, Barrow, and Oconee counties. When we talk about one of our 3 anchor priorities as a district, thriving students, and our mission of creating educational journeys that empower all students to fulfill their potential, Ms. Maddox is the perfect representation of that. She was nominated by first-year BHL Assistant Principal Jenna Suarez, who said, "Ms. Maddox has the most engaging classroom she's ever observed." She wrote, "Her students step into an entirely new world each day as she transforms her room to reflect the content being taught, immersing them fully in the learning experience. If you're looking for a model of academic ownership, look no further. Ms. Maddox students lead the way, sharing ideas, tackling complex tasks, and taking genuine pride in their work. She combines high expectations with empathy and compassion, maintaining a calm, respectful presence that commands attention in the most remarkable way. Ms. Maddox has an exceptional gift for teaching, and we are so fortunate to have her at BHL." And we witnessed exactly that when we surprised her yesterday. A class that was warm and welcoming and so excited for her and so excited for the lesson ahead. BHL Principal, Dr. Annie Turman, writes, "This award is not just a title. It is a recognition of unwavering dedication, passion, and the transformative impact that a teacher has on their students. Denise Maddox consistently goes above and beyond to inspire, challenge, and support every learner, creating an environment where every student feels valued and empowered to succeed. Her commitment to excellence in teaching and fostering growth deserves to be celebrated, not only for exceptional skills, but for the heart and care she puts into shaping the future. Please join me in congratulating Ms. Denise Maddox, our November Employee of the Month. Now come on up. And Dr. Turman, if you would like to join in the picture, we'd love to have you as well. Now, as always, we want to thank the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce for their continued partnership in our Employee of the Month program and for supplying the Employee of the Month gift bag each month with numerous gifts from local businesses. You'll have a great time unpacking that later. And as a reminder, we again want to encourage everyone in our community to nominate any full-time CCSD employee with at least 1 year of service for this award. You can follow the link on the screen there. There have been so many fantastic nominations that have continued to pour in, which always make it a difficult decision. And each month I think, how can it get better? But you all see the list and bucket of amazing instructors and support staff in our schools is just outstanding. So thank you everyone throughout the CCSD community for the tremendous support you show, and congratulations, Dr. Maddox. We thank you, and our students and their families thank you. Now, this concludes our recognition, so I will now turn it back over to you, Dr. Anderson, for any recognitions you and the board may have at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Moore. That was and is always the highlight of our board meetings. Okay, we will now move on to item 5, our public comment. We have 2 individuals who submitted their names, and I don't have my script in front of me. Do you have my yellow folder? Sorry. Okay, and our individuals will be invited to speak, but first let me just list out our policy according to BCBI. Each individual speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak, and at this point, remarks must be concluded. No speaker will indulge in personal attacks, and all comments are to be addressed directly to the Board of Education. To protect the privacy of students, speakers shall refrain from identifying specific students by name. No individual or group shall be retaliated against in any manner for speaking during public participation. Personal concerns may be addressed in writing to the superintendent and the president of the Board of Education. Written copies of comments may be provided to the board. At a board meeting, board members will not respond to questions or comments from the public. The district may respond to public input as needed or appropriately within 10 working days. And lastly, the use of obscene, profane, vulgar, physically threatening, or abusive remarks will not be allowed. Loud and boisterous conduct or comments by speakers or members of the audience are also not allowed. And our first speaker is Reverend Sandoval.
Good afternoon. Superintendent Dr. Hooker, Madam President, Dr. Anderson, and board member. Come before you tonight in the renaming of City Show's baseball field to Coach James Lewis Holston. I am a graduated of 78, played baseball up under Coach Holston. Not only was he a coach, he was also an educator. He worked for Athens Clark County School District and retired. He taught at all 4 Athens high school, Athens Industrial, Bunny Harris, 1 year at Clark Central, and then retired at City Shows. And hopefully you all can come to a resolution to where that the baseball field at City Show could be named after James Lewis Holston. Anthony Pittman will not be here today. He had an appointment. He had to go to the VA down in Augusta. but we all stand together and wish that you all would find it in your heart to rename the baseball field after Coach James Lewis Holston. He has been a pillar of this community up until the day he passed away. So if I can deploy you guys to name that baseball field after Coach Holston, we would greatly appreciate it. Not only I myself, numerous of baseball players, football players, they would be indebted to you guys. And thank you for letting me speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so I understand that Mr. Pittman cannot be here this evening.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for letting us know. So that actually concludes our public comment for today, and we appreciate you coming out to speak on behalf of your issues. All right, we will now move on to item 6, to adopt the agenda as presented.
I move we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, that motion was made by Ms. Davis and seconded by Dr. Yeager. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. Our next item is Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to start out with reminding the board in December, pardon me, we recommend bringing we recommend bringing for a vote for 7 policies. These will be available for your review at least 2 weeks prior to the meeting in the assembly. I'm good. And also be described full in work session agenda items 2, GBRH, and IHF are out for public comment now. The other 5, IA, GBT, GCI, KC, and GBRIG, have previously been out for the public. In February, we will bring our new process and have 8 policies for the first read. Okay? I'll go into my comments for today. Congratulations to our Employee of the Month, Ms. Maddox, as well as to Mr. Ben Smiley and our amazing student athletes and coaches. This month is full of special recognition days. This week is National School Psychologist Week. Earlier this week, we also recognized and thanked our veterans. Next week, we will observe American Education Week. November the 20th is National Education Support Professionals Day. November the 21st is National Parent Involvement Day. November the 22nd is Substitute Educators Week. And of course, we will celebrate Thanksgiving on November the 28th. Earlier this week, we celebrated the opening of the Coral Health Center. This opening, along with the Classic Health Center, brings the number of health centers in our district to 4. Thank you to Nurse Amy Ruick and her team for taking this innovative approach to provide wraparound health services to our students. I'm pleased to share with you an update from the students who traveled to Indianapolis for the National FFA competition. 2 of those students from Cedar Shoals, Amelia Hambry and Delia McElhannon, placed 2nd overall in the animal systems category. The Clark Central Veterinarian Science Team won a silver medal in that competition. Congratulations and thank you to all the students who attended the convention for representing our district. Also, I would like to recognize our Clark Central's Odyssey and Iliad, our students. They went to a competition and they won several awards. Story of the Year by Wyatt Meyer, Digital Story of the Year, Podcast First Place by Emmeline McKinnon, Digital Story of the Year, Blog, 2nd place, Isabel Westridge, Photo of the Year, New Photo, Honorable Mention, Isaiah Khan. Digital Story of the Year, Multimedia Sports Story, Honorable Mention, Candace, Anna, Wyatt, Cooper, and Evan. And Iliad Literacy Art Magazine, the 2024 Design Story of the Year. Honorable Mention, Design of the Year. Honorable Mention, Best Use of Social Media, second place. News Magazine, first place. The Odyssey Media Group, Editorial Leadership, first place, Wyatt Myers. Reporting News Story, second place, Wyatt Myers. And the website, third place. Literary Art Magazine, fourth place. Iliad Literacy Arts Magazines. And Reporting Featured Story, fifth place. The Clark Central Region football team will host its first round state playoffs against Houston County tomorrow night at 7:30 at Billy Henderson Stadium. We hope our community will come out and support the Gladiators. And finally, I'd like to thank the Women's Ministry of Hill Chapel Baptist Church, who did a hygiene supply and toiletry drive and donated 110 bags for our students. These were distributed yesterday. And in the season of Thanksgiving, we are very grateful to these community members who exemplify CCSD and Athens Clarke County being better together. And as I close, I would like to thank Dr. Blankenship, who is retiring on November the 22nd. She has given 18 years of service to our school district. We are very appreciative of her leadership as an HR assistant superintendent, and I'm fondly proud of Dr. Blankenship. We started out when I became high school principal at Clark Central. She was my first hire as assistant principal, who moved on to become associate and later principal of Hillsman. Thank you for your hard work and dedication to CCSD, and we're going to miss you. Happy retirement. Okay, that concludes my comments for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hooker. And yes, the board definitely echoes the sentiments that we will miss you so much, Dr. Blankenship, and thank you so much for your service. Okay, now we are moving on to item 8, House Bill 581 presentation. I'm assuming. Mr. Griner. Okay. Oh, Mr. Griner is walking up. There he goes.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Good evening. So a few weeks ago at our board retreat, we kind of discussed House Bill 581. So just kind of want to give y'all an update and kind of make this our initial discussion in a formal board meeting tonight. So as you probably know, House Bill 581 did pass last Tuesday. Roughly, I think the final tally was around 67% yes, 33% no. So I thought it might be good to, So I thought it might be good to do a couple, just a definition of what is a homestead. So that's the primary residence of a homeowner, the key emphasis there being a homeowner. Athens Clarke County, we do have a school district exemption, exemption SC. At the age of 65, homeowners in Clarke County may apply for an exemption from school district taxes that basically freezes the assessed value of their property. So at 65, you can apply for this exemption. So therefore, House Bill 581 would not apply to this group of homeowners because their value's frozen, so there's no increase once that value is established in that base year. So it's kind of important to note. So really would not affect that particular group of taxpayers. So what does House Bill 581 do? It establishes a statewide floating homestead exemption that limits the annual increase in property tax assessments on homesteaded properties to the inflation rate of the previous year. So you might ask, what is the inflation rate? That hasn't been determined yet by the Department of Revenue. Our understanding is, they will be the ones setting that inflationary rate. Like, what's that going to be tied to? There's several different indexes they could use. But for example, if a home increases in value by 5%, from the tax assessor's, valuation. But the previous year inflationary rate was only 2%, and that home would only go up 2%. So you're limited to that inflationary rate. Our understanding that there's no formal guidance in the bill is that school systems will only have one opportunity to opt out. So everything that we've heard in reading is that there will only be one opportunity to opt out. That could, again, it's not formally written into the bill, but that's kind of the understanding. So I thought it might be good just kind of touch on our FY25 budget and what do our property taxes represent for the district. So they account for 57% of our general fund revenue. Our 2025 budget for property taxes was $135 million, excuse me, with a millage rate of 18.8 mils. So 1 mil of property taxes equivalent to roughly 7.2 million. So one of our RESA groups, not our Northeast Georgia RESA group, but another RESA group, got together with an attorney in the state of Georgia, and they came up with this template to kind of say, what is the impact if we look like this bill had been in effect this goes back to 2018. So we'll just look at 2024 tax year, the current year we're in. So you can see the 40% of value with property with homestead. These numbers came from our tax assessor. This assumes a consumer price index of 4.1%. So you'll see the difference column at the very end. It would have basically been a reduction in revenue of about 2.4 million. I always like to put that in terms of positions. So if you think our average teacher makes roughly with salary and benefits about $100,000, again, that's salary and benefits, about $100,000. So that's 24 teaching positions if you want to put it in the position category of that $2.4 million. So what are the pros of House Bill 581? It reduces the tax burden for our homeowners, as we mentioned, since this applies to homesteaded properties. The cons of House Bill 581, based on what we know, it's perpetuity. Once you decide to, you have one opportunity to opt out. We're currently in House Bill 581. There really is no opt-in provision. If you don't opt out, you're in. It's kind of the way it works. We, as a school district, would lose the control over our property tax policies, the ability to tailor tax rates and certain exemptions like SC 65 that I mentioned earlier. We're kind of limited on what we'd be able to do with those exemptions, like if we wanted to create a new exemption down the road. So the millage rate would also, there's a potential with that loss of 2.4 million, just roughly estimated numbers. There's a potential the millage rate could increase, and then this would shift, again, to make up that revenue difference, would shift the tax burden to businesses and rental properties. Or investment type properties, which mostly is our rental properties. And then there's also another component that we had our school business officials conference last week, the local 5 mil share. Keep in mind in our state QBE formula, we give back 5 mils of our tax digest to the state of Georgia each year. So exemptions are deducted from that calculation, but only if it's a state exemption. All indications are this is going to be treated as a local exemption and not a state exemption. So we wouldn't get that exemption, so we're also going to be giving back a little bit more there. The one thing about the local 5 mil shares, it actually runs 2 years behind, so it really wouldn't affect us probably to like FY27, but that could be a potential lost revenue of another, say, $500,000 or $600,000 that we could have there as well. So again, that's the piece that there's been really no clarification on. That's just what our interpretation is at this time. So other considerations as we look forward to our FY26 budget. Potential further health insurance cost increases. Dr. Hooker and I have both heard. I don't think either one of us think that we're fully done with our health insurance cost increases, so we feel like that's going to continue. Last legislative session, there were additional property tax legislation that did not make it through. We feel like some of that's going to be brought forward again this year. Could be new legislation this year related to property taxes. And then I think we saw some reductions in federal funding this past year. We really fully believe we're going to see some additional reductions in our federal funding going forward, which impacts our general fund budget because those positions then have to move over to the general fund if we decide to keep those. So board considerations. So based on the guidance we have right now, to opt out, we would need to have a vote in early July, the July board meeting. Then we would have to conduct 3 public hearings and take a final vote prior to March 1st because there has to be a resolution to opt out that has to be submitted to the Secretary of State by March 1st. How that resolution is to be submitted has not been determined either, but it has to be done by March 1st. So our next goal is to present the potential opt-out calendar to review at the December board meeting, where we would have the hearing dates listed. If that's the board's decision, we would at least come up with a calendar so we could be ready to do that at the first of the year if needed. So, and that's really what I had tonight, but I'll be happy to answer any questions. Again, there's still a lot of unknown. It passed last week. We haven't really got any guidance from the Department of Revenue at this time. So all this information has kind of been based on speculation on the opt-out procedures are definitely in the bill, but that's the only piece we really know. So.
Mr. Griner, thank you for that presentation. And I just want to correct one thing. You said July.
Oh, did I say July?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Been a long day.
Yes.
January.
It's January. And as Mr. Griner, pardon me, stated, we will, if we choose to opt out, this is a quick turnaround in getting this done and having those 3 meetings before March the 1st, because it has to be in the Secretary of State office March the 1st deadline, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And you will not get another opportunity to opt out. So, and anything else you want to share before we?
No, we think the public hearings will be, if we decide to go that route, will be set up similar to the millage rate. Guidance I've heard is probably conducting 3 separate hearings a week apart, just to be clear. I mean, I think this is one of those that we do decide to opt out, or that's the recommendation, that we need to make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's with every certain procedure that we do with this one. So. Yes, ma'am.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm really interested in the 2 points that you made about we have a homestead exemption for homeowners that are 65 and older. And so the exemption doesn't affect them, but if we have to raise the millage rate, they would be affected. Even if their property value didn't change, the millage rate would still rise for those people, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
And those are often the folks we hear from, is they don't want our millage rate to be as
Right.
high. So that's still going to be an issue. And this law doesn't help those people, except if we respond by raising the millage, and then it would actually hurt them.
Right. That is
Okay.
correct. That's an excellent point.
And then the other point that's really interesting is the housing, the effect of this rising millage rate to make up for the loss would have on the apartment industry in this town, which we know a lot of folks are in rental apartments. You're saying that that would raise the taxes on those and then likely trickle down to more rent?
Right. I mean, that's the potential. If the decision's made, to opt out and then the millage rate does increase, yes, that tax burden would be passed. And that could, I think we've also heard from those constituents in the past with rental prices here in Athens, Clarke County, that I think it would. And that's another concern we have as we kind of start to look into this, is what that would do with our families in the district as well. With those, if that, none of that's set in stone, that's going to happen. We do feel like that is a potential. So.
Yeah, those seem like 2 really good reasons to opt out.
Yes, ma'am. Ms.
Davis?
Davis.
I just want to be clear, the millage rate doesn't just get set, we actually have to vote for that increase, do we not?
Oh, yeah, that is
Okay,
correct.
so we would have control over voting for or to raise or lower that millage rate, so it's not an automatic thing.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, no, yeah, the millage rate, of course, is a formal process every
Right.
year.
Okay.
Again, pointing out, the state of Georgia, that cap is 20 mills. So
Right.
we don't have a whole lot of room. We're at, 18.8, so we only have 1.2 mills. We could potentially raise it. There's been talk in the past of potentially raising that cap. It doesn't normally get very far. So I don't foresee that
I
happening.
don't see it happening either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? From a procedural standpoint, Mr. Griner, you talked about having a tentative calendar established at the December meeting for these hearings. So that means that this is the meeting that the board decides if we want to move forward with opting out? Or is this a meeting where we move forward with the public hearings, but have not made any formal decision or consensus of opting out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think from the understanding I had last week, one district asked at the conference I was at last week, so can we advertise our hearings in December and then have them in January? And the question was absolutely not, or the answer was absolutely not, because the House bill doesn't actually go into effect until January 1st. So all the hearings would have to be in January. I think we could do it I think in December, really, yes, to answer your question, Dr. Anderson, I think that decision needs to be made if we're going to, because from what Dr. Hooker and I have talked about, we really need to have those hearings quickly in January, just to give enough time to move forward with the process. Because if we have the hearings in January, then you're probably looking at a potential board vote, maybe at the February board meeting, and then that gives us enough time to get the information to the Secretary of State. So I think that's kind of, again, the guidance is kind of murky a little bit, but that's kind of what I gather. I think you could have if you wanted to potentially wait to the January board meeting to make that decision, but then you would have to have the hearings fairly quickly, and then you're starting to get into a stretched timeline there. That's going to be.
So I guess my main question here, just to kind of drive this home, we're not saying that as a board, we're not collectively at this moment saying that this is a decision that we have made and we will move forward with opting out. What we are saying in this meeting is we would like to proceed with hearings to hear from the community whether or not, as a board, we should lean in either direction. That's where we are right now, correct?
Right, and this meeting tonight was just, of course, informational, and then really to go ahead and get it in front of y'all so y'all can be thinking about it, for the December board meeting. I think once you have the hearing, based on what I understand, the hearings are no different than the millage rate hearings. There's going to be a final decision at the end of those hearings.
Yeah.
But in order to be able to opt out, you have to have those hearings, or you can't opt out at all. So.
Gotcha, okay.
Chris, if you don't mind my adding, just
Yes,
for
sir.
clarification, the ad that has the language of the ad for the hearings is in the bill, and it says the name of governing authority intends to opt out.
Right.
But after the hearing, of course, you can vote either to opt out or not.
Right.
But the language in the announcement is clear that the board intends to opt out.
Right.
So then there needs to be at least a consensus that there's an intention to.
Yes, that would be my understanding.
Okay.
And again, at the end of those three hearings, if the board hears from the public and decides not to, of course, you can always. Again, there really is no formal opt-in process. You're in unless you submit that resolution to the Secretary of State by March 1st. If that resolution then gets submitted, you're just in. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess with that in mind, as a board, I don't know how to make a decision of intent. You either vote on something and discuss it, or I don't know how to make a decision of intent.
If I may, I would say it's pretty much identical to your millage rate process.
Right.
You have to advertise your proposed millage rate, but then you still hold the hearings, and it's subject to change based on public input.
Okay, so then, board members, let me ask, just down the line, do you support an intention to move forward with public hearings? Or would you like to just kill the conversation tonight? Yes, Mr. Evans?
I think I need some more time. I'd like to read the actual law. I'd like to have conversations with other board members and with Mr. Pruitt. And I think it would also be a good idea for us to reach out to our colleagues in the commission to see what their thought process is on this as well. Because we're kind of in the same boat together, correct?
Yeah, the only difference between us and ACC Gov, they did put a provision in the bill that basically they could do an additional local option sales tax if needed. It only applies to city and county governments. We don't have that authority as a school district. Again, it would require all three taxing authorities in Athens, Clarke County, which is, ACC, or Athens, Clarke County, Bogart, and Winterville would all have to agree to that. So they have maybe a potential additional source of revenue. So that's really the only difference in their decision and our decision is along those lines. And they don't have certain exemptions that we have, like we do have the 65 exemption. So.
Yes.
And I also I think that maybe operations should maybe make a recommendation to us on their feelings on this as well, since they're the ones who are going to have to deal with the consequences of this action. So that way we can take that into our consideration when we're making a decision.
So what I hear you say, Mr. Evans, is would Superintendent Hooker and Mr. Greiner be able to provide some language on whether you support opting out or not, so that we have at least that to use as the district's position?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. How do you all feel about that?
We can work on that, but I definitely want to hear from the board members as to what your thoughts are on this process, because you're going to have to deal with your constituents. And so can we get a poll and start with Mr. Denson and end with Ms. Butts?
Yeah, I mean, this bill is going to hurt school districts. It is. It's going to cut revenue. And we can look at it right there for this past year, 24 teaching positions. I mean, that's a pretty hefty impact to this district. You can go back to other years, 2022, that could have been up to 42 teaching positions. And we're talking about these things while we have, I think Mr. Greiner put it well, like a lot of other unknowns when it comes to our revenue, when it comes to what our QBE is going to be because of enrollment. But with those changes, some things aren't going to change, like the cost of our transportation, the cost of maintaining our school grounds and our buildings, heating our buildings. Those things aren't going to change. Those things aren't going to change even if inflation changes. So because of that, and because we don't have an alternative revenue source, I do not think that this bill and this policy is good for Clarke County School District. So if we're basing this decision on, is this a good policy for Clarke County School Districts and our students? To me, it is obviously not. So I would support at least starting the hearings, yeah.
Okay. Dr. Yeager?
Yeah, I think when I heard the two cons, that this actually doesn't have any impact or could have a negative impact on our seniors, who are the ones who are facing raising taxes and having a hard time staying in their homes. So this wouldn't help them, and it might hurt them. And then it might hurt our renters. I mean, it just doesn't, and then we might lose 24 teachers. Of course, what you just said is huge. So yeah, I think I would support opting out. I don't think people understood what this vote was. I was standing in line with all kinds of people who had no idea which way to go. So I'm not surprised. I'm actually surprised it passed because people were like, well, I just won't vote. But anyway, I think I would support an opting out.
Ms. Davis?
I would have to leave the population if I did not support opting out. So as a senior and one with that exemption, it's still ridiculously high, and we don't control that. I am concerned a little bit about the implications of us opting out. I get it that the homestead exemption is fairly safe there, and it gives us that tiny bit of cushion. But if we have opted out, what other things do we need to do to ensure that we still don't see a decrease in tax revenue because the county opted out and we have no replacement for that other than SPLOST or some other new local options tax? And so I'm not happy to save money on one side and then end up spending it on everything that I purchase going forward. So that's my conflict. But to participate in a statewide setting of my taxes is definitely not something that I am in favor of. I think that should stay local within our county.
All right, Ms. Butts?
I'm in favor of opting out.
Okay. And then Mr. Evans?
I'm opting out. I mean, and we're not even talking about the voucher stuff, because we don't even know what that's going to look like. So, I mean, this bill seems was ill-advised to begin with, and I understand that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But I'm leaning towards opting out unless someone can convince me otherwise.
Okay. All right, so it looks like we've got a consensus of an intention, and the board sits pretty firm on that. Mr. Griner, can I ask, and you may or may not know this, but there were 2 other resolutions on the ballot, both having to do with increasing the exemption of taxes for second homes, I believe it was, and then increasing the value from $20,000 to $70,000 or something like that. I'm a little bit murky on the language, but that seemed to also have some sort of negative impact on the tax revenue that would be coming to school districts across the state.
Right. The other 2 what am I trying to say? The other 2 constitutional pieces that were voted on, one dealt with the tax court, which has no impact. It was establishing a state tax court. Currently, it's in the executive branch. It was actually moving it out of the executive branch and creating the judicial piece.
Right.
The other one that you mentioned is on personal property. So that applies to, not necessarily home related, but it's any personal property you may own, like trying to think of where that would apply. It's, I totally went blank. We just talked about this last week. I think it gets into RV, some of those type items like that, that would apply. It would impact us, but I don't think that impact would be that large, but I can try to get you a number on that. The exemption went from 7,500, I think, to 20,000 was the.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the only 3 I remember.
Yeah.
I know on the ballot, that's the 3 I remember.
Okay.
So.
I appreciate that, because when I read that language, I said, we're going to get hit on this side too, but not as much.
I don't think that's a large on the personal property, but I'll see if I can't quantify that with the tax assessor's office.
Okay. Okay, so then just to be clear, my position is to, move forward with hearings for opting out, and unless, like Mr. Evans, unless I hear compelling arguments against it. Our whole mission here as school board members is to think about our students first. And we have to support, maintaining the revenue that comes in so that we can provide the best level of education for our students. So, all right, so if you could, Cabinet, come up with 3 potential dates for hearings in January, and present those at our December meeting. And that will give the public an opportunity to hear those dates at our board meeting, so that we can disseminate that information as widely as we can, not just at the board meeting, but also in, the announcements and all these other things.
Right, because in December, we could at least go ahead and make sure all the dates work, because we do need a quorum present. That was confirmed last week, and I know Mr. Pruitt has spoken to that in the past, that, we do need a quorum at those. So we can go ahead and make sure those dates work, and then, of course, we can't run the first, ad, would have to wait till January 2nd, and we'll definitely, work with the newspaper on that as well.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Griner. And unless the board has any other questions, we're ready to move on. Okay, thank you so much. All right, and now we are on to item number 9, the consent agenda as determined at our work session. As a reminder to the public, these items were discussed not in length, but were presented at the work session, and we agreed to vote on these as a collection. The first is the October 7th work session and board meeting minutes. Second is field trips. Third is to renew mobile modular rentals at Cedar Shoals. The fourth is building automation systems upgrades, and the fifth is ground maintenance services. If you all agree with the items on the consent agenda, I'm opening the floor for a motion.
I'll make a motion for us to accept the consent agenda.
Second?
All right, that motion was made by Mr. Denson, seconded by Dr. Yeager. All in favor of approving the consent agenda items, please raise your hand high, say aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. Now we will move on to the items that we agreed to pull from our consent agenda and discuss individually and also move individually. The first was the September 20, no, that's not right.
It's just Mr. Griner's financial report. You
Yes.
vote on that separately, so it's under there too.
I always forget that that's on there. But first, we will have Mr. Griner come and do a presentation on the 2024 financial report.
Sorry, I turned that off all again. So you have before you the financials as of the end of September. So we're 3 months into the fiscal year. Revenues look good. We're 3.4 million roughly over where we thought we would be. Again, it's hard to, the timing of our tax collections is always kind of a guessing game. We got the majority of them in October because they were due October. So September is always kind of a guessing game. So revenue-wise, we're definitely in good shape where we thought we would be. Expenditures were actually a little bit less than what we budgeted, so that's also good. So we're at, about 126,500 less than we thought we would be. And again, that's kind of trying to guess where we'll hit. We know our payroll is our biggest expense, but then other expenditures kind of, the timing of those. So the general fund at the end of September had a fund balance of a little over 41 million. Again, it'll spike. When we get to October, you're going to see a large fund balance and it'll start coming down like we've seen. Based on the timing of our revenues, it'll start coming down toward the end of the year. November is always October is always the largest because, again, the bulk of our property tax money comes in October. So. But I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all have. But again, we're right where we thought we would be right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Dr. Yeager, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I just heard on the news that the tax revenues for the state are way behind schedule, but that's not our property tax. That's other taxes.
Yeah, that's totally different. We're fortunate. Of course, Ms. Meadow is retiring. So this is December will be her last, we're in her last few months as tax commissioner. She's done a tremendous job of collecting our taxes. So yeah, that doesn't. I think last year we ended up almost right at 100%. Wow. I think the uncollected rate in Athens-Clarke County is normally 1%, which is amazing. So yeah, I think the state revenues are starting to come down a little bit. So that'll be kind of interesting to watch during the legislative session though, because that's going to affect a lot of decisions. I'm sure the governor makes in his budget, as he proposes in January. So.
All right, other questions? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. We are ready to vote on the
I move that we
September
approve
20
the financial report.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, motion made by Dr. Yeager, seconded by Ms. Davis. All in favor of approving the financial report, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you so much, Mr. Griner. Okay, now we're moving on to discussing the items pulled from our consent agenda. So the first will be the Georgia College Advisor contract, and as a point of information, the KPIs that were shared to the cabinet were also shared to the board members, so they're in your emails. And if you have other questions, we can do that now. So we first need a motion on the floor.
Make a motion that we accept the contract as written.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, the motion was made by Mr. Davis, seconded by Mr. Denson. We'll start the discussion with, not Mr. Davis, sorry, Mr. Evans. We'll start the discussion with Mr. Evans, motion maker. Any questions?
Just in conversations with operations, it seems like this is a good program that we should continue. And it sounds like with some of the board members, their families have actually taken advantage of this and has made a difference in their students. And so if it helps our kids get into college or trade school or whatever, then let's continue it.
Okay. Mr. Denson or others, comments?
I agree with Mr. Evans. It does sound like there's, some of our board members make good arguments for why we might want to be exploring new ways beyond this to kind of have a more, just a little more tools in our belt for how we could be going about assisting our students getting into the colleges of their choice.
All right. Does anybody else? Dr. Yeager?
I'm just going to say, I'm looking at the KPIs, and I don't see their impact. Our pre-CAC college enrollment rate was 47, and went between 48 and 51. I don't see that they're doing anything exceptional, and it seems like we're kind of short-circuiting our college counseling by sort of doing it halfway with this UGA program. I'm just not impressed, so I think we should rethink it, and I'll probably vote no.
Okay. Any other comments?
So, if I may, thank you. I do have a concern. I appreciate the opportunity to work with different departments at the university to help us, capture information. I just want to know how we operationalize that information, the feedback that we're getting. What does it do to impact our decisions about how we approach preparing our kids for college entrance, preparing them to get to this place? I can't see a connection between this as a measurement tool, a communication tool, information gathering tool, and how does it impact how is that being used, the information that we're getting being used to improve or change or to, again, impact the trajectory of our kids? I want to see a connection between doing this task that has to be done and how, what's learned from that our own counselors could possibly use in their own recommendations for kids and as well as for our administration and how we approach kids and making these decisions. So I want to see that connection toward our long-term goals of what we want to produce in our children. I think I've had too much feedback from kids that have said they had no idea what to expect at college and they weren't prepared for college. I've had conversations with kids who did their financial aid, they spent the financial aid before they could even get to the second quarter, they're out of school because they didn't really know what they were getting into. I'm looking for something more substantial to come out of this, and the KPIs are going to help me. I haven't had an opportunity to truly delve into those, but I will, and maybe I'll have some more intelligent questions for you at that time.
Can I speak? I do want to share with you that the college advisors do take students on college visits to provide them opportunities to see the various colleges, the HBCUs and other universities. And in my dealing with college advisors, there are at least 3 trips that this has taken place. They ensure that we have where colleges come to the high schools. What do we call those? College fairs. Thank you. College fairs. Ensure that students are provided opportunities for the college fairs. And I think in the past 2 to 3 years, even with college match that has taken place from the governor, where students now in October receive a list of colleges based upon their SAT, not based upon their GPAs, what colleges that they're eligible to apply for are able to get in, has encouraged many of our students to go to college, because before they didn't know, I have to take the SAT, I didn't know which college I could get into, but if you get a list in October, you look forward to saying, let me check out this college. The college advisors have been helpful in that, and they also assist our high school counselors who are at times overloaded doing other things and working with those seniors to select the right college, not only select the right college, but empower those parents as to how to fill out those financial aid forms and things to expect in going to college. I've witnessed that myself not only serving as principal, but as superintendent and as assistant superintendent, seeing it in Henry and in social circle being effective.
Thank you, Dr. Hooker. And I would just like to add a little bit of my input as well. I don't think that our college entrance rate, I don't think that this is the only metric that we should be using to determine whether or not this particular program or any other program is improving our college entrance rates. It's multiple factors that impact whether or not students decide to go to college. And the college advisors are helping students who are, in many cases, already sort of predetermined to go to college, and then trying to pick up those students who have never considered college. But what we as a district need to do a better job of is educating our students to the point of feeling like they are ready to go to college and then applying to college. And that's where our failures, I think, lie, less on college counselors and more on college readiness. And I don't think you can just take this one metric and say, these people aren't doing their job because our districts, our students aren't ready for college. It's so many other metrics. What I do think we could do is continue this conversation and perhaps put this program on alert that this is something that we will be looking at further, and that perhaps the board can say, we would like to see the district look into other avenues that we can support students with college readiness and college counseling, rather than just eliminating this program because we feel like the metrics don't fit. So that's the direction that I would like to see us go in, and that's where my vote will lie. I don't think eliminating this program is sending a message that this program in particular needs to be the fix-all for college readiness for our district.
Thank you. And I would like to say, I'm definitely not saying that all of that rests on this program. Again, what I said is I'd like to see how that works with and through the other parts of readiness for our kids. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Davis. And just to be clear, I wasn't addressing your comments specifically at all. It was just my general, yes, feelings. Dr. Yeager?
Yeah, and just to follow up, I mean, I'm in absolute full support of college counseling. I'm not saying we don't need to be doing that.
Again, I was not addressing my comments on any one particular comment.
I'm not addressing your comments. I was addressing what Dr. Hooker was saying about the importance of college counseling and the importance of taking kids to HBCUs. I was absolutely agreeing with him on his point. And I guess my point is that this does not seem like it's worth $70,000. It's not doing what we need it to do, I don't think. That's all I'm saying. The money could be better spent elsewhere.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. So if you all are ready for a vote, if there are no more questions or comments. All right, all in favor of approving the Georgia College Advisor contract, raise your hand high and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say no. Okay, so that motion fails. Yep, that motion does not pass. It's 3-3. We need to have a majority for it to pass. Okay, let's move on to item C, job description for the mental health counselor in middle grades and high schools. We need a motion.
I move that the job description be approved as submitted.
Second.
All right, the motion is made by Ms. Davis and seconded by Mr. Denson. Any discussions, questions, concerns? Okay. All in favor of approving the job description for the mental health counselors for middle grades and high school, raise your hand high and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. Next up is personnel report.
Make a motion, we accept the personnel report.
Right now, there's not an item in there, so. Oh, am I not logged in? Maybe I'm. Oh, yes, I'm not logged in. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we knew what we were voting for. Okay.
Did we second? Somebody second?
Yeah. Okay, so that motion was made by Mr. Evans, seconded by Mr. Denson. All in favor, raise your hand high and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. And next up, we've got the approval of the 25-26 and 26-27 academic calendars. I need a motion.
I move that we table this conversation, or this vote, until staff has a chance to address all of those comments that we have.
Okay. I need a second. Okay, motion made by Dr. Yeager, seconded by Ms. Davis. The floor is open. Dr. Yeager, would you like to start? Oh, you already kind of.
Well, sorry, yeah, I made the motion. Mostly, I mean, there's a lot of comments here, and I don't see any district sort of decision or talking about responding to these comments, so it's hard to know exactly what everybody thinks about it. But the biggest one, I think, seems to be the hours for conferences and the timing of conferences, and also the equity between the different schools, how much time the teachers are in class. There's a bunch of sort of comments about that. I'd just like to hear more from the district about whether this is what we have to have or if these comments are reasonable.
Okay.
Pardon me, Madam Chair, can we have Dr. Scott share some information with the board, please?
Yes, Dr. Scott, would you like to?
Thank you. So I want to actually draw your attention to the survey results, because when we're thinking about the comments, those are individual comments, but the survey results that were provided were over 800 responses that were used to actually develop the calendar. So when we're thinking about the conferences, well, first of all, the hours for the schools in the individual level, so the elementary daily hours, middle school, high school, that is not a part of the calendar. And so the number of hours that they're working, and so the comment that you said in reference to the days for the different levels and worried about the timing for that, that would not be impacted by the calendar as far as the daily schedule, because it was something in reference to middle school having the longest day in their start time and end time. Is that what you were referencing?
Yeah, there's half days here and there, starting and ending. I mean, some schools have those and some don't, and so the teachers have more hours if they don't have those half days. I mean, I haven't done the math, but that's what the comment was referring to.
Right, and so then that's referencing the half days that are for conferences. And then our high school has had the half days due to final exams. And so the additional half days for other schools, like high school, they don't have final exams that they give. And so that's why the high school has the half days for the final exams at the end of each semester, the first semester and second semester. When it comes to the other comments as it relates to the spring break, then again, the spring break was left where it was based upon the survey results and the percentage of people completing the survey stating that they preferred that the spring break stay where it is. And I believe that was at 73% of the survey results said that they wanted the spring break to stay where it was. And so that was the other bulk of the comments, of the 21 comments that were received, was around spring break.
All right, Mr. Denson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to relay, Dr. Gant relayed a question. She said she was unable to call in for some reason to the meeting, but that she was wondering if this feedback could be considered by the calendar committee that initially looked at the calendar and if they could give feedback to us. And her request was if we could, hold this item until after the calendar committee could give feedback. Just wanted to bring that up.
Again,
Dr. Scott?
we could potentially take it back to them, but again, because many of the comments go against what the actual survey data said, and we're talking about 1 or 2 comments, the comparison of the total number of comments versus the actual feedback survey data, then I don't know that we would change to go against what the survey said based upon the comments, because the number of comments compared to over 800 in the survey wouldn't warrant changing that.
Okay, other thoughts? Okay, there's a motion on the floor, so let's go ahead and call it. All in favor of tabling the academic calendar decision until the December meeting, raise your hand high and say aye. Okay? Okay. We've got 3 ayes. All in favor of moving forward with another motion, raise your hand high and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion does not pass. So the item E, approval of the 25-26 academic calendar and 26-27 academic calendar has been tabled to our December. Is that right, Mr. Pruitt?
Motion to table failed.
The motion to table failed, so now we've got a new motion on the floor. Okay. All right, so now thank you for setting me straight. Now we have the opportunity for a new motion to be presented.
Make a motion that we accept the calendars as written.
Okay.
I second.
All right, motion made by Mr. Evans, seconded by Ms. Butts. I think we've already discussed, so we can go ahead and call it. All in favor of approving the 25, 26, 26, 27 calendar, please raise your hand high and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. All right, now, nope. All in not favor. Dr. Yeager. Okay, so we've got 6-1, 5-1. All right, next up, we have the Athens-Clarke County Project P7 acquisition packet. We discussed this a lot at our work session, but we can go ahead and call a motion, and if there's further discussion needed, we can do that. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept item H.
Okay. Second. All right, motion made by Mr. Denson, seconded by Dr. Yeager. The floor is open for discussion. Mr. Denson, since you are the motion maker, did you have any comments? Okay. Dr. Yeager? Okay. Are there any other comments, questions from okay. Ms. Davis?
So now that I'm looking at the project, at the package that was sent to us, this fair market value for that property, is it just for that slither of land that this number is quoted?
Yes.
Thank you. That's helpful. And it does answer the question. Thank you for providing that map to me, John.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes, thank you. Because that was really helpful to see exactly how this is impacting it. The conversation in the community has been that it was going to close off access to the Minor Street entrance, which would be almost ignorant since the address of the school is Minor Street, since by definition and by whatever practice was in place, they wouldn't allow that school to be built facing West Broad Street. So that would be an extraordinary slap in the face. So thank you very much.
Okay. Are there any other thoughts? All right, let's go ahead and call the vote. All in favor of approving Athens-Clarke County Project P7 acquisition packet, raise your hand high and say aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Okay, we've got 5 and 1. So that motion passes. Okay, now we are on to information items. Mr. Gilbreth, would you like to come and do the SPLOST monthly report?
Good evening, Ms. Palmer. You could pull us up some photos. So we only have 20 pictures tonight, so I'll get through them quick. Again, as Dr. Hooker mentioned, we had our ribbon cutting ceremony for Classic City and also for Coyle Health Center. So those are two projects that are complete, open, and they're seeing patients. So we're glad that they're in operation. And these are just some photos from those openings. And that's Coyle, and we had the ribbon cutting this week. Cedar Shoals, we're well underway, getting ready. The last phase inside the building of the classroom area, 200 AB, will be turned over December. Have furniture going in over Christmas break. You can see tennis courts are done. These photos are about 10 days old. They actually have the color and topping on, so the net's up. So we'll actually be able to turn those over probably the next week or two. Loading dock cafeteria additions. This is the outdoor eating pavilion at Cedar. And again, we're shooting for December Christmas time turnover date. These are some of the interior finishes of 200 AB, carpets going in, ceiling grid, tile, painting and such, getting ready for furniture. So we're in good shape there. Clark Middle, phase 2 is progressing nicely. You can see from this aerial shot, the phase 2 parking lot is first coat of pavements down, stormwater detention ponds going in, sods being laid, and they anticipate a Christmas turnover date as well. We're going to slowly phase them into the admin space, PL space. We've got furniture coming probably mid-January, and we'll work with the principal and the staff to get them moved in there as well. This is a shot of the gymnasium. Wood flooring will be delivered later on this week, and they'll start that next week. So when the students come back in January, they'll be able to use the gym. That's your concession stand, your entrance into the gymnasium. And then lastly, we're doing an expansion at the warehouse. You can see we brought over some dirt from Clark Middle. We've got the pad ready. Bids are out right now. We had a pre-bid conference yesterday. Anticipate bringing you some pricing in December to start this project. And we actually broke this project down into smaller bid packages to give the opportunity for local subcontractors and vendors to make it more manageable from a cash flow standpoint, to try to improve that opportunity for our local people. Any questions?
You did say you brought dirt over from Clark Middle.
Yep.
Amazing. Thank you.
It cost me about $135 a load, which typically, and that was brought over, installed, compacted, and normally that would be $500 to $600. So it was kind of already our dirt, so we're just repurposing it.
All the dirt's gone now, isn't it?
Yep.
Other questions, comments? I will say I drive by Clark Middle regularly, and it's knocking me out how much progress has been made, but also how beautiful it's going to be when it's done.
Well, Miss Moore she's kind of burnt out for doing ribbon cuttings, but we will have a open house ribbon cutting for the gymnasium once we get it, probably in February. So we'll give her January off, and we'll go from there.
Dr. Moore loves that stuff. She'll be fine. All right, other comments? Ms. Davis?
I want to swing back up to the Coyle ceremony. That facility or that clinic is, it's not contiguous to the building. Is it going to always be separate out there, or is it going to at some point be incorporated more into the landscape of the building?
Yeah, it's separate just because of the Coyle population. I mean, they're utilizing all their spaces, and we were not able to turn around and build something permanently attached into the building, given the time frame that we had. And so this modular component, I mean, it's a permanent building. We have permanent foundations underneath it. So it's kind of there to stay. And I would imagine if we do something at BHL, it would probably be something similar as well.
It's modular, but it is permanent, is what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes.
It's modular on a foundation.
Yes.
Okay, other thoughts?
We'll talk about that some more.
Okay.
Okay. And the SPOS monthly report, did you have any?
Like I said, we're on schedule. So we're hoping, like I said, turn over Clark Middle by Christmas time, and then Cedar is ongoing. I appreciate you approving the modular extension. The plan is to get all the other phases wrapped up between now and August of next year.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. And up next, we've got our facilities update.
Yes, Mr. Stacy Collins is filling in for Dr. Askew today.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
You're going to have to probably guide that, Ms. Parham.
That's embarrassing.
Thank you.
This is a facilities update for November 14th, 2024. Current projects that we have going on is LED lighting installation at Clark Central Sports Fields. Week of November the 11th through the 15th, baseball fields to receive containers of products, and Georgia Power to begin electrical upgrades on transformers. LED lighting installation at Cedar Shoals Sports Fields, Georgia Power to begin electrical update on softball fields, demo of old poles, and installation of new. New intercom installation, CCSD Learning Center infrastructure wiring complete to be installed December. Cleveland Road wiring completed. Equipment installed will be in December. Howard Beach Drive wiring and equipment installed. Well, equipment will be installed in December. The first phase of the HVAC renovation is Burks Elementary and Clark Central High School. That was done 10/10/24 through 10/14/24. Classic City High School was also done 10/10/24 through 10/14/24. Houston Elementary, November 25th through, November 25th, 2024 through 11/30/2024. And Gaines Elementary will be done December 20, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. And HVAC repairs and outages, work orders created for November. The work orders that was in progress was 16, and work orders closed in October. Work orders completed was 108. And let's see, work orders in progress is 167, and work orders completed is 678. The average work order velocity was 4.72 days. Any questions?
All right, thank you so much. Any questions from the board? All right, we're good. You're off the hook.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, up next, we've got item C, our Early Head Start Policy Council meeting minutes and reports. Mr. Denson, do you have anything to present to the board?
I do not for that. Yeah, again, this is actually the report back from 2 months ago, so it's kind of odd that, yeah, nothing to report then. We've already taken action, so.
I know, it's always weird when you're talking about something that happened like 2-3 months ago with that policy. All right, item D, Athens Area Community Foundation. Heidi Hensley should have submitted a report, but we'll reach back out to her. I know she did say at our last meeting that they were having a meeting coming up, so we'll reach back out to her and ask her if she could submit a report for us. Envision Athens, Mr. Denson.
Envision Athens did not meet this month, but we will be meeting next month to do our strategic planning. As I brought up last month, if any board members would like to give any suggestions on changing how what our focuses are on, I'd be glad to hear it and carry it forward.
All right, yes, members, please feel free to reach out to Mr. Denson if you've got any thoughts. And item 4F, item F, our Sustainability Committee report, Dr. Yeager.
Yeah, thank you, President. We met on the 12th, just this last week, earlier this week, and mostly still working on subcommittee works, trying to pull the recommendations together. The chair asked all of the subcommittees to kind of wrap up the conversations and pull their top recommendations together by the December meeting, and then we're going to start to write the report. So we're trying to get the report in as early as possible. I know you've given us until March, given the summer break, but we may try to get it in sooner than that if we can.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, that is the conclusion of our information items, and now we are at item 12, adjournment. We need a motion, y'all.
I have a quick question before we adjourn.
Oh, no, okay.
I'm sorry,
Ms. Davis?
is there a place for that?
Well, there's not a motion on the floor yet, so.
Okay. Life is good. Information item. So normally, I am happy to report that I did make it to the COC meeting this month. And I've given some feedback to Dr. Hooker, and I'd love to have a conversation with you and you after the meeting quickly to bring something to your attention. So that was an exciting adventure, and I wanted to just, close a loop on that.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And normally we do have the COC on here, don't we? Did we just?
So normally, the
No,
the
you're fine.
COC is given by the COC staff. So Mr.
Ascot?
Yeah, he gives that report. They did not meet in October, so that's why there was no report for from them. That's usually done through them.
Oh, fair. Okay, thank you so much. All right.
So you would do
All right,
extra.
That's me, I'm a giver.
You're just so generous. You are generous.
All right, we're going to talk about that after the meeting. Can we get a motion on the floor?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. All right, motion made by Mr. Denson, seconded by Ms. Butts. All in favor, raise your hand high, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.